everyone. Today is a Sunday, as always. Today we're going to be talking about leveraging our networks and how we can do that in a COVID situation or any pandemic. It's the seventh session of Approaching the New Normal, and let me just introduce our speaker along with. So, for the speaker knows who he's talking to as well. We will introduce the rest of the team. The speaker is Akshay, and he is working as an alumni impact manager at Teach for India in Ahmedabad. He's had experience in tech, and he's had experience at the Young India Fellowship as well. And now he's working as an alumni impact manager. Not to forget, he has also done the Teach for India Fellowship in Pune. Fun fact, I taught in his school for 1 month and I lost my mind because it was insane. Behavior was all over the place, but then I wonder what he did and how he did it. Kudos to you for that. Great. Now we have Priyank, who's currently doing his MPhil, his PhD, and he's finished his MPhil. We have Saurabh, who's a career guidance counselor. Yeah, and overall cool dude. We have Jasleen, who's a Teach for India alum as well, and who's now working at QCI. And we have Pallavi, who's a human rights activist. And yeah, that's there we are. Great. So Akshay, would you like to just begin on some stuff about just basically run through what the fellowship is about, and then we can move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand. Can I ask people to answer questions like in a class, or should it be like me speaking?
No, it's a discussion. It's a free-flowing discussion. There's no problem at all.
Okay, then I would first like to hear from Saurabh, Pallavi, and Priyank as to what they think the fellowship is. So we teach a practice that we follow, and Jasleen and Prince already know it. So I'll hear from you, and then I'll try to correct or just clarify any doubts that I have or you guys have. I will tag Priyank to go first. Like, tell us what do you know about Teach for India Fellowship?
That's a very interesting way because we ideally we know nothing. Like, we have only we don't have any experience with TFI as such. So I just understand TFI to be a platform where people come in from varied backgrounds, they're trained and they teach in low income schools. That's what basic understanding I have.
Anyone you want to tag Saurabh or Pallavi?
I think so. I don't know much. Similar to Priyank, I just know from my friends that it is there in the website also the same thing, that how it is trying to eliminate this education equity from by having people from different places as TFI alumni. I'm not sure if it is like exactly what I have just shared.
Yeah, that leaves you, Saurabh.
So I actually knew first about Teach for America, and then I heard about Teach for India. And as a career consultant, I recommended it to a client of mine, and she was super happy after joining TFI. What I knew about TFI is, yes, you guys do some charity kind of work in low income schools, and after 2 years, it's a rigorous process to get into it. And then after 2 years, when you finish the stint, most of the people just end up in Columbia or Harvard or something. So it's a great thing to have on your resume. That is why people do it.
Right. Okay, I think a lot of points got covered. I think so we'll start with Priyank. I think he rightly said it's a platform to train teachers. In a way, I would say training, but I'll shed some light on that later. Yes, we teach in low income schools only. We teach in government schools and low income private schools. So basically, catering to the economically weaker section of the population. Pallavi, I think, touched upon what Teach for India's mission is. What we want to do is eliminate the educational inequity from the country. And yes, Saurabh, I think he spoke right when he said the model is borrowed from Teach for America. And we are lucky that the client of yours left super happy after the fellowship. And definitely it is also a rigorous process. So let me start with just uh, from the beginning as to the vision, the mission of Teach for India and what the program looks like and why the program is the way it is. The vision of Teach for India is one day all children will attain an excellent education. Teach for India, because it is India specific, so the vision is looking at all children in India. The mission of Teach for India is that we will build leaders that will eliminate educational inequity in India. Yes, it sounds fancy, but I think I understand it in very basic terms. What Teach for India is trying to do is just flood the education system with people who have had on ground experience by the virtue of fellowship and people who really care about the system. Uh, yes, Teach for India's the selection process is very rigorous. The reason for that, according to me, is that we want to get in the best possible talent so that this talent, when they go into government schools, they kind of become, in some ways, role models for the teachers as well. In some ways, role models for the students and like good quality teachers that people can learn from. That is what the Teach for India model is. So 2 years fellows work in a low income private school or a government school, and they basically act like an employee of the school. The HM can allocate tasks to them and basically working around the need of whatever the school is. And they try to run interventions in the school for the kids so that the learning outcomes improve. And the performance of the fellows as such is tracked based on the goals and based on the learning outcomes that they are able to drive in their classroom. Each fellow is usually allotted a classroom which consists of around 30 to 40 kids, and those kids, we track their RC level, we track their math scores for SST and uh, other subjects. We do the school examination or the state or NCERT examinations. We use those to track their performances. Uh, yes, so Teach for India model is also like a relay model in the sense if we select a school and there are multiple classrooms in the school. One caveat here is that Teach for India only currently intervenes in English medium schools. So English medium private schools or English medium government schools. Uh, a Teach for India fellow goes in and starts intervention in the second grade. So second and third grade, the fellow will teach. After 2 years, a new fellow will be allotted to the same classroom. So what we are trying to see, if the same set of kids, if they receive what we call as excellent education, they will be able to improve on their life outcomes also. During my fellowship, something that has stayed from me is what we are trying to do is if we can uh, impart the kind of education that will set them on a transformational life path. Basically, uh, we also think of four things actually. One is improving the culture of achievement in the student, then increasing the rigor in which the content is being taught. There is also a lot of focus on values and mindsets. What values and what mindsets are the children in the classroom building, and what is the kind of access and exposure the students in the class are getting on a day-to-day basis. So fellows on a unit basis try to reflect on where is my class on these four parameters, and based on that they kind of change their interventions, modify their interventions. The support that a Teach for India fellow receives is in the form of program manager who kind observes their class on a regular basis and tries to give them feedback. It could be on the way they are planning the lesson. It could be on the way they are interacting with the school stakeholders and the community stakeholders. So all these interventions and the feedback rounds are based on how can the fellow think about creating ways so that they can improve the student outcomes of that specific set of kids. And this happens for the entire 2 years. Usually, the trend is that for the first year, the fellow because they are coming from a completely new background, they are not really used to the classroom environment, and also a lot of physical activity done in the classroom. So one of the reasons I did the fellowship was that I, along with increasing or improving the student outcomes, I also want to work on myself in terms of interacting with people and speaking in front of an audience. So I think that way the fellowship puts a lot of physical stress on you, in the sense you have to stand in front of people and speak, and you are moving around in the classroom doing a lot of physical activity. Most people who graduate, I would say, from top tier colleges will not uh, majoritarily go in professions that would require so much physical activity. They are usually sitting in front of a desk and working, but the fellowship that way is also different. Plus, most of the most of the fellows that are in the fellowship, they also come from really good colleges. So they have not seen the kind of situation or the kind of communities that the Teach for India students come from. So for them, it becomes a really overwhelming experience. For example, a fellow might be coming from a really good household where they have been brought up in a really nice way, but they go to this school and they see that the HM is hitting the student on a regular basis, or the teachers are there is corporal punishment that is implemented in the school, even though it's not legal to do that. But these are the things that the fellow observes on a day-to-day basis, and then the Teach for India fellow is made to think like, how can I improve the system so that the students we are creating kind of a safe place for the students also, and by creating that safe place, enabling the student to learn more on their own. So yes, so this is, I think, broadly what Teach for India fellows are trying to do. After the second year is when Teach for India fellows become alumni, and that is a completely different ball game. In the alumni movement, is what we call it, is the fellows, we try to engage the Teach for India alums as much as possible. But the idea is that given that they have this shared experience of 2 years of teaching in a low income classroom, and having got training of similar type throughout the 2 years, there is this, I would say, an organic connection that develops. Hey, we have gone through the same experience, and we both came in the fellowship so that we wanted to improve the system. So now what after 2 years? That's the question many Teach for India alumni, including I think Praneeth and Jasleen at this point, are grappling with. How can I still continue working in this education sector after the fellowship? So in order to do that, Teach for India has an alumni team. Basically, in many ways, I would say what Saurabh is doing for his clients. So the alumni team, we have one person allocated in every city who kind of has conversations with the fellows, trying to understand what are their strengths, what are their values, what are their passions, what is something that they want to build as a career, and they try to align. Hey, because you are telling me that these are your strengths, values and passions, this could be a good opportunity for you to kind of engage with and build your career in. You could do this because this caters to your strengths the best. You could do this because this is the way you see you can impact or contribute to the world in the best possible way. Or there could be any other reasons, like some of the reasons could be just monetary, like some of the roles will pay more than the other roles. So a fellow might have that as a non-negotiable, that I need to earn this much amount of salary after the fellowship, and that's why they would choose. But what we try to do is uh, kind of induce a strong sense of purpose in the fellow also, through conversations uh, which happened right from the fellow joins Teach for India as a fellow during the institute until the time that they are placed in an organization. Uh, so there is a strong sense of purpose. The hypothesis here is that if you have a strong sense of purpose, you will probably do well in any job that you kind of align to using that. Uh, Yes. So that's the fellowship. In the alumni movement, a couple of things that we try to do is try to keep the alumni engaged in terms of organizing spaces for them so that they can come and, uh, just spend some time together. The idea is that because they have this shared experience, and they know the problems that their school or community has faced, probably it will spark some kind of conversations that will lead to some initiatives. Like this initiative can be counted as one of them, where fellows are fellows are thinking about education inequity in a deeper way. They are taking perspective not just from Teach for India individuals, but people from another sectors, and also trying to understand how they can, change the system or kind of enhance the system in some way. So that's one. What we also see is after the fellowship, 70% of the alumni or 70% of the fellows who come to the fellowship join the education sector. So that has been like an average number throughout the year. We have not been able to track in the sense how many of these people continue to stay back over multiple years, but the data says that 70% or more people choose to stay back in the education sector. And the fellowship, like I said in the beginning, is also in a plain simple way wants to flood the education system with people who really care about the system. And the hypothesis is that one day we will reach kind of a tipping point and the system will start caring more about school systems. Yes, policy level, if you think of it in a policy way, currently not a lot of budget is allocated to the education sector. What Teach for India's hypothesis is, as more number of alumni graduate, I think they will start helping each other and get into influential positions of the system, and using the theory of leverage points in system thinking, kind of get to those leverage points where they can, with small amount of impact also, they can increase their sphere of influence, as we can call it, or the amount of impact that they might have. A lot of So Teach for India also, for the alumni vertical, basically looks at placing people in something we call as puzzle pieces. This is taken from the Sabre framework of the World Bank. So there are 13 puzzle pieces that we kind of focus on. Uh, Out of those, school leadership, community empowerment, teaching and teacher training are sort of the direct impact puzzle pieces. That means uh, that these are the puzzle pieces. If you work in them, you are directly interacting with the children. And apart from these four, there are there are 7 other puzzle pieces which we call as indirect impact puzzle pieces. I cannot recall them currently, but some of them could be, say, curriculum development or early childhood education. These are just examples of the other puzzle pieces. uh, yeah, I think that's broadly what the Teach for India fellowship is, and that's also broadly what we call the Teach for India alumni movement also looks like. uh, Teach for India is also, I think, trying to create positions for alumni in government or working with government sector. This is happening mainly because many alumni are sensing the need of the hour, start their individual initiatives, which kind of again employ Teach for India fellows and other people as well. One of such example is an organization that I know of from Pune, is Leadership for Equity. So this is started by a Teach for India fellow turned alumni, and they are currently working with the government of Maharashtra uh, to build capacity of the education officers that work at district level. So that way they have, like I would say, exponentially increased their impact in terms of or Teach for India fellow only catering to 30 people. That kind of becomes a very high touch support, in the sense too much effort being spent on these 30 kids. But if an alumni sensing the need of community collaborates with the government and initiates an organization that works at a district level, they are able to directly work with teachers at a district level, and hence also able to reach children at a district level. Uh, yeah, and other ways in which Teach for India alumni also contribute are they join different organizations that are already working with the economically weaker section of the population, and they contribute in whatever capacity they can as an employee. Yes, there are a lot of alumni who choose to go back, say to the studies, like you mentioned, that they go to really good quality colleges because the kind of experience they get in the fellowship is also valued by those universities. But I would say that number is very limited in the sense our numbers tell us that around 10 to 15% of fellows usually do that. But probably those are the ones who are very vocal about what they are doing, and hence those stories get, I would say, broadcasted more. But there is like a huge chunk of fellows who continue working in the ed sector, and because we see that 70% and more people are also who in the absence of Teach for India would never have thought of working in the education sector are now in this system and have had a shared experience and are constantly thinking of how they can improve the system. Yes, I think I've spoken for a really long time. I guess that's broadly what Teach for India is and what Teach for India does. I think Jasleen wanted to shed some light on the puzzle pieces. Go ahead, Jasleen.
No, I just mean that, I will share the list of all the puzzle pieces that we have, tertiary education, governance, and everything. So I'll share it with them. I have all the details. And whatever you've shared, I think the last sentence that you said, that without Teach for India, a lot of people would not have thought, getting into government, a public education system. And I am like one of that. I'd never imagined that I would work in government education system. And if it was not for Teach for India, it would not have happened for me. And because of the kind of experience that I got at grassroots level and working with various stakeholders, getting that exposure and the kind of training that I went through, I think that shifted my mindset and my action towards what I want to do in, future. So it always aligned to I want to get into public system, I want to get into government, I want to, work at system level. So these are the few things, few reflections that came to me while I was working at Teach for India. And so Teach for India, basically, I think working in the classroom is just one aspect of Teach for India. I think the main product is creating leaders who go into various places and create impact. That's how they scale the impact. That's how they're entering into different position, be it system, be it communities, be it various states. So that's how Teach for India is spreading its footprint in public education system.
Yeah, I think Jasleen, you touched upon a very, very crucial thing that I missed. Yes, the core of what Teach for India is also trying to do is build leaders. So the fellowship also, what we also know of it in Teach for India lingo or Teach for India jargon, this is what we call is the theory of change of the organization. It is a two-part theory of change. The first part is the fellowship, where fellows go through a very rigorous experience, thus transforming themselves or becoming leaders in some way. And the second part of the theory of change is these leaders become leaders of the movement after their 2 years of fellowship and kind of go into different organizations or try to go into different leverage points of the system and try to make the system in some way that really cares for the students and the children that we are working with. I think all the conversations that happen in Teach for India are keeping children at the center, in the sense how can we give best possible experience for the children that we are teaching. And if you ever get a chance to visit a Teach for India classroom in your city, I would really urge you to do that. Just watch the fellow teach, and some of the people So I'm also working with a few ISB graduates this year who are helping us out with some projects that Teach for India fellows do. So they went and observed a few classes online, and they said that I was never taught this way. Like I never felt that kind of affinity towards my teacher, or I never felt that kind of, I could have that kind of bond with my teacher. And that is something that you can starkly see as different in Teach for India classrooms. The students are very much encouraged to share their opinions, share their voices. Something which we also call as the student voice, that is encouraged. Something I personally did not receive when I was getting an education, and I don't know how many people in the country also receive that. So whatever learnings we have come from, say, different Teach for All networks, or Teach for All organizations that run in different countries, and also by constant reflection of what is working and what is not working in the class. Uh, yeah, I think that's mainly it. But the crux of it is Teach for India wanting to create leaders in the system who will, who we see that in one day will be able to change it also.
I just wanted to ask you a question based on what you said quickly before anybody else wants to add. Which is, you had mentioned there's a tipping point that we want to get to where we have people who are working in the government. So right now, or people who want to work in the government. So like, when do you think, or how far are we from this tipping point so that we can sort of make large scale change? Like, just your opinion about it. It doesn't have to be, it's just a very generic overview of it. There are other multiple organizations other than Teach for India who are also working in the education sector who may not be affiliated with the government. So
Right.
to bring about large scale change like this, what do you think should be our path, and how far are we from that tipping point? I'll tell you why I asked this question after this, but yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I frankly have an idea of how far it is, or how many people will the system need in terms of Teach for India alumni only. Uh, yeah, so I don't really have an answer for that, but I think that's the hypothesis that I feel Teach for India operates with. Can we somehow somehow bring in more people in the education sector who otherwise would have not been here, who otherwise would have taken jobs in, say, fancy organizations and kind of done something else. But Teach for India is operating with that hypothesis that more number of people in the education system, more number of people who have had the ground experience of what the current education system looks like, what are the challenges that the children face, what are the challenges that the teachers in the school face on a day-to-day basis, what are the challenges that the HM faces. So basically just driving that understanding uh, so that they understand the school as a system, and they are also able to extrapolate that understanding to the entire education sector as well.
Yeah, so I asked this because I wanted to know, I was just wondering, how do we bring about the sense of community? How do we leverage whatever we know already with people that we, like, there are some niche areas that people are working on. Say, STEM is now a big thing, STEAM, it's with arts as well. But, something like robotics, for example, if I want to teach robotics, there's a certain organization who's working with that. So is there a way that I can sort of think about leveraging all of these organizations together? That's the main idea. So building a community of people who are working along with the government and independently as well. Both, it should go both ways. So that's what I was thinking about. That's why I asked the question. How do
Right,
we
right.
sort of make that community together, and maybe all together we'll reach that threshold and then go past it, and then there's a sudden surge or shift in the education system as a whole. That's the ideal case scenario. But yeah, that's our dreams.
Right. I
I
think
think
absolutely.
people who've been
Yes,
on this call
absolutely.
before know I'm taking too much of an optimistic view majority of the time. So yeah, it's still the same. Yeah. Anybody who has a
I
question or
think
wants to add something?
if I can jump in, see, there are a couple of things I really wanted to ask, and we are already half an hour past. So I thought I'll just jump in right away. See, one is I want to understand how is TFI responding to the whole COVID-19 thing. You know how what are the innovations which are taking place in the TFI campus, and how differently are the teachers trained on what are the certain leadership aspects which the senior people in TFI are showing, and how do they want to grapple this whole COVID-19 scenario. And plus, I want to understand in this COVID-19 situation, how is this network, the whole thing of leveraging network and alumni network, what kind of role does a network like this play? Community network and all that, what kind of role does it play in this situation?
Yeah, I think definitely a very relevant question to ask. In terms of response of the senior leadership, I think being in the staff, I've seen that the leadership has been extremely active, and they have communicated every small decision that they're taking and the rationale for that as well. Something that was, I think, very strongly shared as soon as the pandemic started was that Teach for India is going to ensure that no person who is currently employed with Teach for India will have to think of an alternate opportunity with the fear of losing a job. So that is something that happened. Secondly, what the senior leadership also did is they held spaces, in the sense, very open, very vulnerable spaces where uh, people were invited to join and share what are they feeling right now. uh, and based on that, they heard, I would say they heard from all employees in one way or other, and were trying to constantly modify the strategy based on what they were hearing from their employees. For example, if they saw a lot of people struggling with productivity because they had to shift from working on the field to now going and working from home. They organized a lot of spaces or invited experts who could talk to the staff about how to improve your productivity while working at home, and how to also at the same time take care of your well-being. They observed that a lot of staff, because suddenly the physical boundaries between work and personal life were eliminated, and this they sense that the staff is working a lot in terms of 12-13 hours, because laptop ghar pe hai, and you don't know when to eat, when, what's the clear demarcation between your personal time. So based on that, they also gave an organization downtime as such, where just 3-4 days take some time off, because you've been burning yourself out because of this sudden change. So that's how the senior leadership has reacted. I would say whatever small experience that I have, I think the staff or the senior leadership of Teach for India has been extremely responsive and also responsible while they think of what is Teach for India staff supposed to do during these times. So that's how they have reacted to the staff. How have they reacted to the COVID-19 crisis that hit and affected the students? So I think there was a fundraiser that started, which aimed to raise around 1 crore rupees, so that we can help out the students that we are catering to. The idea here is that Teach for India, and because Teach for India intervenes only with the economically weaker section of the population, as soon as the pandemic hit, a lot of students were impacted in terms of their parents lost their job. They were Most Teach for India students are also from the category where people make money on a day-to-day basis. So they had no food as such to eat. So most of the funds that were raised were kind of used to provide ration to a lot of students and a lot of families that were not able to, raise money for their food also. After that, what Teach for India did is, uh, this is for the students and for the fellows. So for the fellows, we sense that schools are not going to start anytime soon. So how can we pivot our way of operation? How can we kind of bring in the online learning as soon as possible and as effectively as possible, so that whatever number of students that we have access to at this point in time because of internet, we will teach them on a day-to-day basis. So uh, they made some collaboration with organizations such as the American School, I think, if I'm remembering the name correctly. And there were national spaces held in terms of training the fellows how to teach online. So there is this new jargon in the education sector currently, which is known as blended learning. So it's a combination of you taking online classes and you sending asynchronous packets which students have to engage on their own, so that their learning does not stop even while they don't have access to their teachers. Yes, of course, reaching the students who do not have access to internet has been a struggle, but I think fellows have completely uh, gone above and beyond their call of duty. For example, I know a few fellows who just do voice calls or group calls with the students on a regular basis so that they are teaching. Uh, a fellow will call 4 or 5 students and they will do a voice call and they will do their lesson and then give them work if the students don't have internet access. For students who have internet access, Teach for India uses the Zoom platform to invite students on for online classes, and fellows try to ensure that at least 2 hours of online learning is happening for these students. Uh, I have not really been aware of how this is happening for, say, primary students. Because I work in Ahmedabad, most of the fellows in Ahmedabad teach higher grades, that is 6th, 7th, 8th. So this was kind of easy, I would say, for the students in 6th, 7th, 8th grades, because they were allowed to use mobile phones and they were also equipped to use those mobile phones. But for students, I think in 2nd, 3rd grade, this must have been like a really big struggle. I'm not really aware of how Teach for India fellows are dealing with those kind of situations. Uh, Yes, and last question you asked was around leveraging the network. So what we also sensed, the pandemic hit during the month of March. That is when most of our fellows also usually get job opportunities. So in order to cater to them, the team quickly responded and created like a group on WhatsApp, using it as a platform so that everyone from different cities can just send job opportunities on that group, and Teach for India fellows will receive those constant updates, so that they are not left without a job after the fellowship, because finding a job was also becoming more and more difficult. And I think Jasleen and Praneeth would agree to this as well, because they themselves were kind of people who were in the midst of all this while this was happening. That's how Teach for India dealt with people who were transitioning into the alumni movement. For the alumni also, Teach for India organized kind of spaces to hear or sense what the alumni are thinking, what are their deepest fears during this point in time, and how can Teach for India help the Teach for India alumni also. But I think because there are large number of alumni, currently around more than 3,000 of them, Teach for India does not have the capacity to kind of do a very high touch support with them, that is interact with alumni on a one-on-one basis. So whatever leveraging of the network happens, or whatever connections with the alumni happen, they happen in online spaces where the alumni are invited to share what is happening in their lives, in their organizations. I saw a lot of alumni on the group just posting job opportunities and just sharing whatever resources they created for their students, or their organization was creating for students or people working in the education sector freely, so that people are just aware, hey, there are these resources and I can use it instead of spending a lot of time creating them on my own. There was a lot of stress on just the community well-being also. So people started newsletters which share positive news during these times. People also invited other people to join to open spaces so that they can come and just talk about how they are feeling during these times. Uh, yeah, I think those are ways in which the leadership has responded for the fellows, for the staff, and for the alumni as well. And this is still continuing. Currently, Teach for India is thinking of how can we reach the students who do not have internet access. So for them, we are thinking of if we can partner with organizations who can just donate internet devices which students can use. Um, I also think that because of the pandemic, the demarcation between the privileged class and the underprivileged class became very clear, where we saw students who studied in, say, high income schools or really affluent schools having all the benefits which the economically weaker section did not have. Right from parents being able to, connect with teachers, parents being able to provide internet devices for their students, the population or the section of the population that Teach for India fellows interact with, the parents themselves, most of the times the students that we are teaching are first generation learners. That is, no one in their houses has even finished a 10th grade or even finished a 12th grade or even is a graduate. So the parents themselves struggle with understanding what is the importance of education. During these times, should I prioritize taking my mobile so that I can go and work properly, so that I can provide my family, or keep the mobile at home so that so that my child can use it for the online classes. So these are the dilemmas that fellows have to face on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, I think that kind of should give you like an overall idea of how Teach for India is dealing with this crisis. And we are also kind of training the fellows to have that mindset of, hey, this world is very volatile, this world is very uncertain, this world is going to be complex and ambiguous, and you need to think about it in terms of those. And there was different sessions I will organize for the fellows also, so that fellows are prepared for that in terms of their mindset. I know that these are the challenges that will be coming my way, so I will be mentally prepared so that I don't exhaust myself emotionally as well.
I wanted to ask a bunch of questions actually. I'll just try and put them together. Um, so, like with whatever you've explained, it seems like TFI is an amazing organization with so many talented people, young people, and very very passionate people, and their reach is tremendous. In a very plural, diverse country like India, the reach is so important, and TFI has amazing reach. Um, so it almost seems like there is an excellent system which is called the TFI, and then there is the Indian education system. No adjective attached to it. Don't the people in the Indian education system get intimidated by this excellent system? That's the first question. Second question is, how many of the TFI alumni actually go ahead and become government school teachers in India?
Yeah, yes, again, very good questions. Regarding intimidation of this excellent system, I don't know if I'm really in a position where I can answer this, but I think I have seen like this play out at a school level or a classroom level when I was a fellow. For example, there is a lot of comparison that happens between a Teach for India fellow and a normal teacher who is teaching in the classroom. The headmaster of the school, seeing that the fellow is investing so much time and emotional effort in dealing with the kids, kind of tends to favor the Teach for India fellows while running initiatives in the school. So that is one way it happens. Sometimes it also happens that uh, because, for example, there are two classrooms in the same school, 6th A and 6th B. 6th A is a classroom which is a Teach for India intervened classroom. 6th B is a classroom which is a non-Teach for India intervention classroom. So there is a stark difference between how the 6th A students behave and how the 6th B students behave. And that kind of then leads to a lot of problems which the fellows have to again deal with on a day-to-day basis. It could just mean like jealousy among the students themselves, where the 6th day students thinking that, hey, we are getting this good Didi and Bhaiya who's coming us and teaching, and so because they can see that the other students are not able to answer the questions that they are able to answer. So that is something that I think is very definitely visible at a classroom level. But at a systemic level, I don't think Teach for India has been able to create that kind of a visibility where the government really thinks ki we want to implement whatever Teach for India is doing. Uh, yes, that is my current understanding of if the government feels intimidated, because Teach for India, I think, is currently impacting around 35,000 students. And if you look at the scale, there are around 240 million children in the government school system. So the numbers like are very, very meager in terms of Teach for India's impact. But definitely, I think because Teach for India fellows are also kind of encouraged to share their opinions and voices, there is this constant conversation and dialogue about we don't want to create like a parallel system along with the government. What we want to do is create people who can then go back and work with the government to improve the capacity of the government. So that's the whole idea, and that is something that is consciously thought of and talked about in Teach for India as well. Regarding your second question, how many Teach for India alumni go ahead and become government teachers? I don't have exact numbers, but I think this number is very, very tiny. It could be around 2 to 3% of the entire cohort of fellows who do fellowship during the 2 years. I think 2 to 3% of them go and become government teachers. But what Teach for India is trying to do is trying to place fellows as teachers. So this year itself, they saw that, or they have sensed this throughout the years as well, that if fellows continue to remain with the kids and in the school system, there is a large scope of school system transforming completely. So they introduced something called as a transformational teaching fellowship, where fellows can continue teaching beyond the 2 years as well. And this, they have to get selected after the second year while they go into the third year. And every year they will have to get selected so that they can continue teaching. Uh, there is a lot of entry barrier, I would say, in terms of Teach for India fellows becoming government teachers, because there is an MOU that is signed with the schools when Teach for India fellows are teaching. For the schools, at least, a B.Ed degree is something that is mandatory for teachers to have while they become permanent teachers. But Teach for India fellows don't have that B.Ed degree. So that, I think, is the major entry barrier for Teach for India fellows to become government school teachers. I don't think money or looking at it in terms of compensation is a problem, because Teach for India fellows get paid around 60 to 70% of what a government teacher would get paid. So ideally, if this entry barrier was removed and anyone who has had some experience of teaching and has showed some results in their classroom, if they were allowed to go and teach in government classrooms, I feel that many Teach for India fellows would choose to do that. But currently the system is set up in such way that unless and until you have that degree, which most Teach for India fellows don't, it becomes difficult to start teaching in a government school. Yeah, I think that is how I would answer it.
If anybody else doesn't have a question, I'll go ahead. Saurabh, you want to ask another one?
I mean, I just had a follow-up question, so I was just waiting if nobody else is going to ask.
No, go ahead. I'll ask.
So that transformational fellowship that you talked about, transformational fellowship, how many of the alumni actually opt for that?
I don't have the exact number of how many alumni, so I can give you So we had 36 Teach for India fellows in Ahmedabad last year, and of those 36, I think we have 5 people. So around that many people who chose to do the transformational teaching fellowship. So this is not just people from Ahmedabad. Some people who finished their fellowship earlier also came and joined the program. So this was open only for Teach for India alumni. So I think that's the scale. Uh, this could be at around 10 to 12% of people have opted for it, but the process for it was again rigorous as the selection process for the fellowship itself.
I think for this, especially transformational, since it's a first year program, or like it has happened for the first time, Teach for India opened limited number of slots for the transformational fellowship. So if you are interested specifically in teaching, you go and apply for these positions. So I guess there were total of like from Delhi, I guess 40 fellows got selected, or like 40 fellows entered the transformational teaching fellowship. So they take up people who are particularly passionate to become teachers only. So they've opened around 100 slots, pan India, and they've taken 100 teachers from alum, from fellows this year. That's how it is. It's not left to the left to the people ki apply karna hai kar lo. It depends upon the number of slots that Teach for India opens as well.
Yeah, and in terms of commitment also, sorry Praneeth, in terms of commitment of, so people who applied and got the offer letter, Teach for India ensured that the offers were not withdrawn like many other organizations who withdrew their offers or deferred their offers because of the pandemic. Teach for India again stuck to that commitment of, hey, we told you that you will get this offer and you will start from this day. So that has something that Teach for India is stuck with.
I have a very abstract.
Go ahead, Praneeth.
I have a very abstract question in itself, which is basically, again, this is just your opinion, right? So you have this array of people who are working in the network, within the network. So how do you measure, or is there a way for us to measure, like, hey, their impact is this much? Like we have, we have done this much work, and as a whole, we can convince the government to do X, Y, Z because of this. Has it ever happened in a fashion such as that? In discussion of, instead of running a parallel system, or if we have something which is blended in itself, is there a way for alums or the network to sort of measure their impact and sort of make a report and then give it across to the government?
I think one of the biggest challenges that the development sector faces is measuring the impact that they have. I think Teach for India also measures it in terms of numbers as to how many children are Teach for India alumni or Teach for India fellows directly or indirectly able to impact. For example, if I'm a fellow in a school, I'm impacting 30 students, but if I become the HM of the school, my decisions are impacting around 400 or 500 students. In the same way, if I move higher up the hierarchy of these things, then my impact is increasing because the discussions that I'm having with the government officials are changing the way they are thinking about it also. So my impact is improving. I would say, Praneeth, to answer your question, there has been one alumni, his name is Anurag Kundu, who currently, I think, is the chairman of the Delhi Commission for Child Rights. I think Jasleen might know about this more because she did her fellowship in Delhi. So this guy kind of volunteered to work with the government for around 2 to 3 years pro bono. And that's when the government officials realized the value of his work and they offered him like an official position. And he currently is working with the Delhi government. He, I think, is also celebrated, or his work is also celebrated in Teach for India. In similar lines, Teach for India also partnered with BCG this year, and they tried to create positions for the alumni at a state level where people who make through that opportunity can work with directly the chief minister's office or the education minister in the state, so that the impact can be improved. But we need to answer your question very exactly. The measurement of impact at this point in time happens uh, just with the count of numbers. How many people or how many children is the Teach for India fellow or alumni able to impact directly or indirectly?
But then we have a platform also like a TFI Connect. It's a common platform for all alums where we get together and we share our stories. So I think through those platforms also and through their alum communication also, impact stories are connected so that not only number is captured, but actually work, artifacts, testimonials. These are also, collected from the alums, from the fellows, and that's the another way how they measure the impact by going into the classrooms, talking to the students, going to those schools, talking to the principal, and that's how qualitative research happens and how they gather data for that.
Awesome. Any other questions, Pallavi?
Yeah, so I wanted to ask something because like I feel like the initiative is kind of trying to change the way we look at education. That's what is the whole perspective of Teach for India. Because
Absolutely.
I am with 100, like, so I keep on following their work. So I just wanted to know, like, I have seen a lot of Teach for India alumni going and starting organizations of their own, like a lot of people, like around 60 to 70% people turn out to be entrepreneurs or something. So I'm just asking, like, how do you look at it? Because as Priyank had asked, I think about how many people get into government, like government jobs, like, so how are we trying to revamp the education system? How do you look at it? Because if we look at education, more or less in private sector, it is still like quite posh and everything. But when you look at government schools, I think except Delhi, where Kejriwal had taken this whole initiative of making government schools very nice. But if you look at other states, like I come from Assam, it's very bad. And then I have done a lot of research in UP, like those places. What about Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Bihar? Like you definitely might be having a lot of alumni there. How, like, what is the thing? Like, how do you look at it in the longer run? How do you think
Yeah,
that it's possible to change the scenario of education system there?
yeah, I think again a very good question. So I will share how I think Teach for India is looking at it. So because we say that we create leaders, so what we are also saying is the onus is not on Teach for India to do this. What we are going to do in the 2 years of fellowship is give you some basic training in terms of teaching and make you reflect on your experiences on a day-to-day basis. So kind of induce or kind of build that habit of reflection, which you are going to use in your entire life after that, to think about how what are the things that you are doing that are helping the system and what are the things that you are doing that are not helping the system as such. And what Teach for India I think is also trying to do by its by the virtue of it saying that we are creating leaders, is it is putting the onus on the people who are doing the fellowship. Hey, you are a fellow now, you have got this experience, you have seen what the day-to-day challenges the government teachers are facing, the children are facing, the HM is facing. What are you going to do about it? Because we don't have that kind of expertise to give you completely and handhold you throughout your life to change the system. But we have given you that values and mindset shift to look at the education system, and we have also given you the exposure so that you understand the problems. And the onus is completely upon you to build the kind of system you want to build. And just to backtrack a little, how this also kind of plays out during the fellowship is there are a lot of conversations about who are you as a person, what are your strengths, values, and passions, what are the things that really irk you, or what are the things that make you angry. And at no point in time, Teach for India tells that only these kind of things, if you do in your classroom, this is what excellent education looks like. There is this constant dialogue of fellows trying to figure out what an excellent education is on their own. Every time they are coming together, the questions are very open-ended, like what is excellent education for you and how do you think you can provide it. And that's the, I think, orientation that most fellows get. Ideally, what we want to also create are leaders who kind of take the ownership of their own learning, kind of take the ownership of understanding the system on their own way or in their own way, and then based on what they identify as their strengths, values, passions during the fellowship, they pick up job opportunities later. So honestly, to answer your question, Pallavi, there is no one direction that Teach for India is recommending. But what Teach for India is kind of saying is that we are giving you kind of a mindset shift. We are giving you ways to think about this in the future. And we hope that using these skills that you learn during the fellowship and by using the leverage of people who have had that shared experience, you will be able to create that for yourself in the future. Yeah, and
So I
because
think it's more of making you empowered, right? Like giving you training and everything in a platform, and
absolutely,
then you
yes.
choose what you want to do. Okay.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, guys. It's 4:30. I thank Akshay for coming and spending time with us and answering our questions. And thank you so much for interacting, everybody else. Hope to see you soon and communicate with all of you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, guys. Am I supposed to say something on the recording, Praneet, to the
No,
YouTube audience?
no, nothing.
Yeah,
Cool.
just a small, I would say, disclaimer I would give is whatever I've shared is my understanding again. I think for people to know more about Teach for India, please interact with the fellows themselves, because they are someone I would call as the men in the arena who are facing the world there. And we as staff, what we are trying to do is kind of create that enabling environment where they learn, and they learn these habits of taking ownership, they learn these habits of taking initiatives, they learn these habits of collaborating with people, so that as an alumni or even as a person in the future, they are able to do something for the system. So that's like a big hypothesis as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that closing thought. I think that encapsulates everything very well. All right, guys. Thank you. Goodbye.